had just killed the engine of my supercar outside. The corner ice cream shop when the universe decided to turn my quiet night into a courtroom thriller. The dash cam was still rolling, the engine ticking like a metronome, and I was thinking about pistachio versus vanilla when a sharp, metallic shriek cut through the air. Someone was carving a message into my door. I didn't see her face at first, only a blur of pink sneakers and a hand gripping a key like a weapon. By the time I stepped out, the damage was already done, and the girl sprinted away laughing. I thought it would end there. I was wrong. 10 minutes later, a woman stormed up to me, with the confidence of a general and the voice of a megaphone. She claimed her daughter had only brushed past my car, and that the scratch had been there before. Her eyes flicked toward the dent like it offended her personally. I pointed to the dash cam, a small black witness on my windshield. She waved it off and threatened to call the police on me for harassment. The shop owner peeked through the window, frozen with a scoop mid-air. I didn't argue. I saved the clip and let the night breathe. The next morning, the paint shop quoted me a number that made my stomach drop. Insurance wanted proof. The woman wanted war. She filed a report saying I had confronted her child and demanded money. That was the moment the footage became more than a memory. It became a promise. Court arrived fast and loud. The girl sat beside her mother, swinging her feet like this was a field trip. The mother told a story about a frightened child and a reckless driver. Then my lawyer pressed play. The screen showed the key dragging a slow, deliberate scar across glossy red paint. It showed the girl glancing around, grinning and sprinting. It showed the mother arriving later, rehearsed and ready. Silence landed like snow. The judge leaned forward. The girl's smile collapsed into something small and wet. Her mother's confidence drained through her heels. For the first time, the scratch had a voice, and it was telling the truth. Reporters scribbled, a clerk coughed, and somewhere a vending machine hummed like background music to a confession. I felt relief and a strange ache at once, knowing a simple camera had protected me while exposing a family's lie in public. Justice can be unexpectedly loud, but the story didn't end with a verdict. What happened after the footage played would change how I saw that night. That car, and the cost of pretending damage never happened. And that part is the reason I'm telling you this now. The judge ordered a brief recess, and the hallway outside the courtroom filled with whispers. The mother paced like a metronome, heels tapping out denial. Her daughter sat on a bench, eyes fixed on her sneakers, the pink ones from the video. I stayed near my lawyer, listening to the echo of the clip replaying in my head. Every scrape of metal a reminder that truth has a sound. When we returned, the judge addressed the girl directly. Not with anger, but with gravity. He asked why she had done it. She shrugged at first, then said she thought expensive cars were showing off and deserved a lesson. The room inhaled together. Her mother interrupted, insisting it was a joke, a misunderstanding, a frame job by technology. The judge raised a hand. Technology, he said, does not invent scratches. The ruling was swift. Restitution for the repair, court fees, and a requirement for the girl to complete community service. The mother objected, arguing that a child should not be punished for curiosity. The judge replied that curiosity leaves fingerprints, responsibility teaches restraint. I felt the weight of the moment tilt from anger to something like instruction. Outside, a local reporter asked me how it felt to win. I said I didn't feel like a winner. I felt like a custodian of evidence. The camera had done its job. Now people had to do theirs. The girl walked past me with a folded piece of paper listing her service hours. She looked smaller than she had on the stand, like the courtroom had resized her. Weeks passed. My car returned from the shop with paint so smooth it looked like water. The bill was covered, but the scar in my trust lingered. Then a letter arrived, handwritten, corners smudged. It was from the girl. She wrote that scraping the car felt powerful for a second and stupid for a month. She said the footage made her realize that moments are permanent when recorded, and choices are permanent when believed. I drove to the ice cream shop again, parked in the same space, and watched the dash cam blink awake. This time, I bought 2 cones and left one on the bench outside with a note that said, "For starting over." The owner raised an eyebrow, and I smiled back. Some nights fix paint. Others fix people. But the internet had found the clip, and strangers had opinions sharper than keys. What they did next would pull the story into a spotlight none of us expected, and the consequences would stretch beyond one scratch in red paint. Tomorrow, the courtroom echo would return as comments multiplied and cameras hunted faces across every glowing screen. By the time the clip hit social media, the scratch had a soundtrack. Slow motion, captions, outrage. Someone looped the moment the key touched paint and set it to dramatic strings. Another froze the frame where the girl glanced back, labeling it intent. Views climbed like odometers. Strangers argued about parenting, privilege, and whether cameras make heroes or villains. The mother tried to control the narrative. She posted a video saying her child was being bullied by a rich driver and a biased judge. The comments were not gentle. People stitched the court footage beside her claims, and the contrast did the talking. Each replay was a tiny gavel. I kept quiet. My lawyer advised silence, and my stomach agreed. Still, messages arrived, some apologizing for me, some threatening me for owning something shiny. The internet loves a simple story, and ours refused to be simple. I saw the girl's letter trending as a screenshot, her sentence about power for a second, stupid for a month, turning into a meme. It made me proud and uneasy at once. A week later, a community center called. They were the site of her service hours, and they wanted permission to use the Dashcam clip in a workshop about consequences. I said yes on one condition: blur faces and mute names. If the lesson was about actions, it didn't need targets. The workshop went live-streamed anyway, with permission forms and pixelated silhouettes. Teenagers watched the clip and then painted over a practice panel, learning how long repair takes compared to damage. The instructor paused the video at the scrape and asked, "What would you do differently?" Hands rose. Answers sounded like future versions of the girl's letter. The mother showed up on the third day. She stood in the back, arms crossed, and watched the panel get sanded smooth. During the break, she approached me. Her voice was quieter than the night at the shop. She said she had believed denial would protect her daughter. She said the footage felt like a mirror she couldn't look away from. I told her mirrors can teach angles. We talked about cameras, about fear, about how public mistakes feel heavier than private ones. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked for advice on how to help her kid face school again. I said consistency is louder than speeches. Apologize once, show change daily. When the stream ended, the views stopped climbing, and the noise settled into a hum. The scratch had traveled far, but it had finally found a place to rest, inside a lesson plan, inside a family, inside a choice to do better next time. Evidence can end arguments, but empathy can begin repairs for damaged communities everywhere. Months later, the ice cream shop replaced its flickering sign, and the parking lot felt ordinary again. I kept the Dashcam, but I stopped watching it. Ordinary is a gift after spectacle. The community center invited me back for a follow-up session, and the girl was there, sanding a panel with steady hands. Her sneakers were different now. She didn't look at the camera. She looked at the work. During the session, a teenager asked if I hated her. The room went quiet. I said hate is heavy luggage for a short trip. I said I was angry once, then curious, then tired of being right. The girl nodded like she was counting steps. The instructor rewound the clip to the moment before the scratch and asked the group to imagine another choice. Someone suggested a photo. Someone suggested walking away. Someone suggested asking permission to touch what wasn't theirs. Afterward, the mother thanked me without a speech. She said she'd sold a piece of jewelry to cover the last repair, bill and use the rest to enroll her daughter in an art class. Keys can draw lines, she said, but brushes can erase them. It sounded rehearsed, but it landed true. I drove home thinking about how stories end when we decide they do. The internet had moved on to a new villain. My car had a new coat. The court had a closed file. What remained was a small habit: pause before acting. Cameras don't create consequences. They reveal them. The pause creates space to choose. On a warm evening, I returned to the shop, ordered pistachio, and parked under the new sign. The dashcam blinked, and I waved at it like an old friend. A group of kids crossed the lot, laughing, hands full of cones. One pointed at the car and said, "Cool." Another said, "Don't touch." They walked on. Later, a message arrived from the workshop's page. A photo of a mural painted by the students. It showed a red car with a bandage made of stars. The caption read, "Repairs happen." I saved it next to the clip. I once thought would be the end of everything. Justice had been loud, but change was quiet. It looked like sanding dust and homework, and a mother learning to listen. It sounded like a key staying in a pocket, and it felt like a night that finally tasted like ice cream again, not metal. Tomorrow I will trade speed for patience and keep the lens clean. If another moment tests me, I'll remember this lesson. Evidence tells the truth, but character writes the ending, and every ending can choose to be kind. That is how I drive now through ordinary nights with ordinary lights, always forward.
Year after the trial, the Dashcam file lived in an archive folder I rarely opened. It had done its work and earned its sleep. The car still turned heads, but I learned to park it where light was good and stories were short. What surprised me was how often people recognized me, not from the car, but from the lesson. "You're the camera guy," they'd say, as if evidence were a costume I wore. One afternoon, the community center hosted a small exhibition of student art. The girl had a piece on the wall, a close-up of a red door with a thin gold line where a scratch used to be. The plaque read, "Kintsugi for mistakes." She told visitors she chose gold because hiding damage teaches nothing, but repairing it with care teaches everything. Her mother stood nearby, smiling the careful smile of someone who finally trusts tomorrow. We talked about college applications and part-time jobs and how the internet still resurfaces old clips like tides. I asked her what she'd do if she saw someone about to make the same mistake. She said she'd say, "Pause," and then explain why. The word sounded simple, but it carried a year of sanding behind it. Driving home, I replayed the night in my mind. The scrape, the denial, the courtroom hush. I realized the real footage wasn't the video. It was the chain of choices that followed. Proof can stop a lie, but patience can start a habit. That's the upgrade I didn't expect when I bought a camera. At the shop, the owner had added a small sign by the register. "Smile, you're on Dashcam." We laughed about it. He handed me pistachio with an extra scoop. Outside, a kid dropped a cone and froze, eyes wide. His parent knelt and helped him pick up the mess. No yelling, no blaming the ground. I watched and felt the story loop close. If you take anything from this, let it be this. Document your world, but don't let documentation replace decency. Protect what you build and teach what you learn. Sometimes justice looks like a verdict. Sometimes it looks like a brush in a small hand painting over a bad decision with better color. The car hummed. The camera blinked. The night smelled like sugar and warm asphalt. I pulled out slowly, not because I feared scratches, but because I valued pauses. The road ahead was ordinary, and that felt like a victory.